So you're a witch. The cold hard truth is that at some point you are going to end up encountering other people's misconceptions, prejudices, and beliefs about witchcraft, sometimes even outright hostility. As witches, we are battling centuries of programming, fear, and persecution. And just because we're not being burned at the stake doesn't mean that we aren't encountering witch hunts in our daily lives. But here's the thing, your power lies in how you carry yourself. In this video, I'm going to give you tools and tips on how you can stand tall, proud, and unapologetic as the incredible witch that you are. Hello Celestial Darklings, if you're new here, hi, I'm Zila and I am a dark mystic, a witch, and the founder of the Nightshade Sanctum Mystery School, which is an incredible academy for witches, healers, and mystics of all varieties. In this video, I'm going to share with you why witchcraft is so feared and misunderstood, how to deal with judgment and skepticism that you may encounter, and then of course, how to embody your personal power to be seen unapologetically. I'm going to stick around to the end of the video because I will share a personal story of some of my own struggles around being seen as a scientist who worked doing research for over a decade, all the while being a full-blown witch inside and outside of the laboratory. Why is witchcraft so misunderstood? The first reason is there is a history of persecution. So these thoughts, these feelings, these fears have been absolutely embedded in the human psyche and even passed down through generations and generations. The prejudice against witchcraft has become so insidious that most people don't even know that they hold that prejudice. And this has happened through societal conditioning, religious programming, and perhaps most profoundly through the power structures that have been set up through the patriarchy to regard any form of feminine power as dangerous or bad or even evil. You see, witches embody sovereignty, they embody the notion of female empowerment and liberation, and especially independence. And that is something that society has actively tried to prevent, because society's mandate wants us to conform, wants us to, serve the capitalistic agenda, and witchcraft is a different path in life. Witches embody that sovereignty, they embody that independence, Imagine the self-trust it takes to go against the grain of society. It is an outright example of feminine power, personal power, and personal knowledge. So although we're not being burned at the stake, modern day witch hunts in the West tend to show up more as beliefs and resistance that you encounter in other people. You might find yourself being labeled as unusual, weird, or even delusional. You might also experience resistance from your friends as family, outright dismissing your beliefs or even ridiculing them. And you might feel this internally as a resistance to speaking openly about your practice or your craft. And so how do you then own your power as a witch? Well, the first step is going to be surrendering firstly to the fact that you need to be seen as your authentic self and as who you truly are. And it begins with choice. It begins with the conscious decision to be unapologetic about who you are. Because at the end of the day, confidence repels doubt. And the more confident we are, the less we tend to get met with resistance from people who actually care about us, and the more we repel the people who aren't actually in alignment with our true selves, with our authentic, witchy, beautiful, mystical selves, right? When you are confident, other people follow your lead. For example, when people ask about your witchcraft, your spiritual practice, you can respond with self-assurance rather than defensiveness. Also, as a witch, you have access to incredible energetic tools that can really help you to master a sovereign energy. For example, as witches, we can walk between worlds and we have access to energies that can support us as we move through the world. And that means making sure that your daily witchcraft practice includes tools, rituals, and spells that help to really cultivate that confidence, such as grounding rituals, any daily rituals that remind you of your power, and also actively doing the shadow work around your personal fear of being seen. When we do shadow work, we're delving into our own psyche and understanding where our fears come from. And most of the time, any concerns about being seen or being visible about our witchcraft are coming back to an internalized, very, very deep set fear that we are not worthy, we're not enough, and that we're not lovable. When we do the shadow work around that and we release those fears, so we choose to believe the polar opposite of that, then we are much less vulnerable to other people's prejudices and their own belief systems that maybe our path doesn't fit into, right? The other thing that you can do is to view other people's prejudices as signs of your own power. So when we are triggering other people, it's often because we're holding a mirror to their own insecurities and vulnerabilities. And in this case, we're holding a mirror to their conditioned beliefs. Every single powerful figure throughout human history encountered resistance, and witches are no different. A person's fear is simply their recognition that they have encountered a power that they don't necessarily fully understand. So at the end of the day, it can be really beneficial to just view prejudice that you encounter as signs of your own power as a witch. I just realized I forgot to light my candles, and of course I can't exist without candles. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you can deal with that fear you might have of being seen. And the first thing is going to be to decide for yourself just how visible you want to be, because you get to choose this, right? Do you want to be a loud, open practitioner on public platforms, or are you someone who just prefers having quiet sovereignty? You know, there's no right way to do this, and absolutely both ways are valid. And a practical tip I can give you for this is for you to use discernment, for you to decide who you are actually safe to be open with and who maybe you might need to be a little bit more closed with. Some situations do call for a little bit more of a closeted witch, whereas other situations mean that you can be completely out of the broom closet without any issues. Decide for yourself how you're going to show up in maybe different situations, different groups, maybe a professional environment versus an informal environment. That's totally up to you, right? My next step is going to be for you to actually develop an unshakable confidence purely for when you are dealing with skeptics. And in many cases, what can help with this is actually writing out some responses that you can always reach for. So pre-script them, actually write them down, memorize them, and just go to them as your default. And my tip here is going to be for you to stick with very simple responses. So rather than opening big, large discussions around it, just kind of shut down the discussion with these very, very quick, simple responses. And also going back to what we were saying before, but answering with self-assurance rather than defensiveness is going to be absolutely key here. So for example, you could say something like, witchcraft is about self-mastery and there's absolutely nothing scary about that. Or you could just have a brief, quick explanation such as, I practice spiritual empowerment through ancient traditions. Or, this is my personal path, just like any belief system. The next thing that you can do, and I actually recommend this to all of my clients as part of their morning practice, is to set up a protective energy field in the morning when you get up. This is particularly powerful because not all battles actually need to be fought, and sometimes just simple energetic shielding is enough. So the way that you can do this is just visualize an energetic shield forming around you, reinforce it. And then what I always recommend as well is to imagine maybe bits of arrows or energies flying into that shield and bouncing off. So you test that shield before you decide, okay, it's good enough. You can always reinforce it more if you need to, but definitely worthwhile taking the time in the morning. It takes barely 5 seconds. It's gonna save you so much sweat later on. Other things that you can do is to carry powerful talismans with you throughout the day. So for example, crystals. So this is a rose quartz that I have had on a chain for many years, for over a decade in fact, and I carry this with me, and it is such a great repellent of negative behavior from other people, and it also always keeps me grounded in self-love. So you can create and use your own talismans and protective amulets as well. And the last thing I recommend is to use Baneful botanicals as protective herbal energies. Let me grab I've actually got some behind me. Let me grab them. So Baneful botanicals are the deadly witch herbs that have been associated with witchcraft for absolutely forever, since the beginning of time. They tend to have evolved characteristics that they use to protect themselves. For example, they can be poisonous, they can be thorny, they could be stinging, and so forth. And so already you can see how they are incredible for that inherent protective nature. And there are many ways that you can work with them, but obviously I'm going to recommend that you work with them safely, because many of them are outright lethal, such as belladonna, hemlock, wolfsbane, and many more. So you've got to be really sure of what you're doing if you're going to work with them in person. Now what I do is I create a little protective talisman. This is a form of puppet work that you can use, and within I have placed Baneful botanicals inside the body. I've also placed protective sigils and symbols, and then around here more protective herbs. And this is a powerful way that you can just create that protective energy, and you can pop this on your altar. Another way that you can work with Baneful botanicals is through creating their oils and their essences, but again, don't work with them unless you know how to do so safely, because sometimes even inhaling them is going to be dangerous. But at the end of the day, you can also work with them energetically, which is another thing that I teach in the Nightshade Sanctum Priestess Path. You can just call on the plant guide, the spirit guide of belladonna, of mandrake, of hemlock, and ask them to help you with your protection magic. That is a really powerful way that you can reinforce your own protective energies around you, so that you can walk through life as an I can't English today, as an unapologetic witch. So the last thing we're going to talk about today that can really help you to show up unapologetically in your witchcraft, no matter the belief systems and everything that other people hold around you, is for you to develop community. So it is really lonely sometimes to walk this path on your own. You can struggle with feelings of being misunderstood, isolated, being judged, and it's quite a heavy burden to bear. And so the solution to this is going to be for you to find like-minded people, because the more we speak to others and we share experiences and we share beliefs, the more confident we're going to be when we meet people who don't necessarily hold the same beliefs as us. This can honestly be a game changer. When you surround yourself with others who also believe in magic and witchcraft, then you're honoring your own magic and your own self, your own belief systems, and your confidence will naturally grow. This is why I created the Nightshade Sanctum Mystery School. I wanted to create a sacred, safe space for witches where you can step fully into your power, learn all the tools and everything that you need without fear of judgment. It's a sacred community where you can hone your craft and experience inclusiveness, support, and love from other people who walk the same path as you. Within the Nightshade Sanctum, we provide community at a whole lot of different levels. So of course, our public Facebook group as well, but we also provide courses for every level of practitioner, from dead beginner to those who are ready to take the powerful step of walking the priestess path. I did say that I would share with you my personal experiences around being seen and some of the skepticism and judgment that I encountered as being a scientist and a witch. I actually hold a PhD in medical microbiology, and I hold multiple degrees in science, from biochemistry, genetic psychology, and infectious diseases and immunology. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but I worked in the science for a very long time, and and I absolutely encountered a lot of prejudice from people. There's a lot of skepticism and rhetoric that made me personally feel like I couldn't show up always in my fullness and in my witchcraft in that environment. But the truth is that absolutely was not the case. I could show up exactly as I was. Actually, it had a really beneficial impact on my scientific research when I started to just relax into my identity and show up authentically. Because at the end of the day, witchcraft is a nature-based spiritual path. And in my field, so I worked in biology, we were unraveling the mysteries of nature, trying to understand, integrate, and communicate the mysteries of nature with other people, and also understand our place in the world. That is in perfect alignment with walking a path of witchcraft. And so when I personally just embraced my identity, not only did my productivity and the quality of my work improve, but I also enjoyed the process so much more. What was previously just a job or something to do became a higher purpose, a spiritual calling that was aligned with my soul's gift. One of the biggest misconceptions that I dealt with as a witch and a scientist is the notion that witchcraft is giving into superstition and delusion. But at the end of the day, the best way that I can explain what I do to those people and to those skeptics is to just let them know that it is a powerful psychological tool that we use for programming of our unconscious belief system so that we can show up in a more powerful way in society. For example, there is the placebo, which shows that what we believe has a direct impact on the outcome of scientific experiments. When we apply the knowledge of the placebo to our daily lives, then it means we can actually create powerful and potent placebos for ourselves that allow us to show up more powerfully in daily life. Examples include little talismans that we can enchant for ourselves. And just to be clear, me speaking about magic and witchcraft as a placebo is not an attempt to diminish the power of magic, but rather to elevate the notion of the placebo as an incredibly powerful tool that we can rely on. And so there you have it. That is how I dealt with some of the skepticism that I encountered in the science world. So I'm curious to hear from you. Have you ever encountered prejudice or even outright hostility from other people about your witchcraft? How did you handle it? How do you go through your life holding your head up high? Let us know in the comments below. Please remember that you were never meant to hide. Witches have always been leaders, healers, and rebels, and the world may not always understand you, but that is not your burden to carry. Your job is to walk this path with confidence and just have as much fun as you can along the way. So hold your head up high. Remember, you are a magical, powerful, sovereign being who has every right to be here in your authenticity, no matter what other people think. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day, my celestial darklings. Much love and blessed be.